Welcome to the Point. Last week we introduced you to the Republicans running for the open 28th Senate District. This week, the two Democrats who will face off in the August primary, beginning with former Kent County Commissioner Keith Courtade. Let's begin by talking about your background, what you've done. You've already had some public service, and just tell us what you've been doing that brings you to this point.
I was a Kent County Commissioner in 2008 to 2010, and I served on the Asset Committee, and I served on the Network 180 Board, and I was a voice for all the working families, men, women, veterans, and basically, as a voice for them, I made sure that none of the funds were diverted that were meant for veterans and seniors and things like that. And then serving on the committees and stuff. Then I recently retired from General Motors, 35 and a half years. And I've always had a passion for politics, and I've been involved long before I was even county commissioner. And trying to, be a voice for the working families and stuff. And so then I decided to run for senator.
Well, as I've said with all of the other candidates who are running, one of the reasons is that you're running is because there's an open seat. And in the time of term limits, that doesn't always happen. And so it has attracted attention with two Democrats and three Republicans running. There's one third party candidate that doesn't have a primary. But beyond the fact that the seat is open, why are you running for this seat now?
I want to be a voice for the working families and like I said before, the seniors and the veterans and all the working families and stuff.
You mentioned veterans a couple of times and also working families. What, from your perspective, could state government be doing better for them? Recently in the news, for example, we've heard both the governor and a bipartisan group of legislators talk about more chances for child care, making it more affordable and more accessible, because that's a really big issue for working parents. But what kind of things do you think you could champion or the state could do that would make things better for either veterans or the working class families?
Well, there's several things, and I think a lot of it starts at the ballot box, and I hate to change the subject, but I mean, as far as the voice and having the right to vote, that's huge. Right now, there's I think 39 bills or something pending where they're trying to limit, person's right to vote, people's right to vote, and so I think that's one of the big things right there.
Well, the bills you're speaking about in the Michigan legislature right now, right. And in fairness, there are a number of bills that may or may not make it to the governor's desk, but it's right. Highly unlikely that she's going to sign any of right. them. So just to clarify that. But getting back to what working families need, what veterans need, what are some of the things that you think the state, I mean, you worked at it from a county level, and the function is obviously magnified greatly from the state level. What are some of the things that you think the state could do, particularly for working families?
Well, like you said, child care, health. A lot of families don't have health insurance and stuff. They could make that more accessible, more affordable. And the child care is a big one. And there's a few other things they could do too.
When you become a member of the legislature, one of your very first responsibilities is putting together a budget. And we're right in the middle of that process now. And unlike many years, this year's budget will not be troublesome from the standpoint that there isn't enough money, because there's a great deal of money that's come in from the federal government. How do you approach budgeting? You worked on it at the county, I'm sure, and talked about being on the assets board. How, when you think about state government, what priorities do you make, and how do you see budgeting as a matter of governance?
Well, we got to take care of a lot of the problems that will still be lingering from the PMATIC and stuff, as far as helping the individuals that got behind on maybe house payments and things like that and stuff, and of course the businesses that got behind on different things. We have to make money accessible for them so they can get back on their feet.
In the district that you hope to represent, you've got a mix of areas from Granville, Walker, all the way up to Rockford, and then rural area too. Agriculture, one of the biggest industries in the state. What should we be doing when it comes to agriculture? What can the state better do to help folks who are growing and raising crops and animals in the northern part of the county?
Funny you ask. I grew up on a farm. My dad worked at GM, but we had a family farm. And there again, we have to have programs and make money accessible and stuff, whereas some of them may have fallen behind or maybe, different problems with the crops and stuff. As far as, helping them out too.
On another major industry, the automotive industry, which you're very familiar with after 35 years with General Motors, the state has over the years done a number of things to try to prioritize things for the auto industry. You look at from the inside out, what is it that could be done to help bolster, strengthen, and maybe most important, keep more of that auto industry here in the state?
A lot of it begins with the corporation and stuff. I'm not sure just what tax breaks and stuff are possible, but there's other things you need too. You need good interstate. There's been some talk about our infrastructure and stuff, so we do need to invest in that, and that will help bring the auto, keep them here or bring them in. So it goes a little bit further than tax abatements and stuff like that.
The governor's proposed $250 million in redoing, updating, and doing infrastructure projects in our state parks area. When it comes to tourism, that's one of the really big keys. People have a place to go outside and do things. What more should, from your perspective, be done to make sure that tourism industry, we've just talked about three really big industries in the state. If you talk about agriculture, if you talk about obviously automotive and tourism, how can the state bolster tourism? Because that kind of plays off the other two as well.
Yeah, and there again, you go back to infrastructure and stuff. I don't think there's anybody that would argue, that our infrastructure is crumbling. I mean, it's in the whole United States. It's in need of a lot of revamping and rebuilding of the infrastructure. That makes a big difference too, and stuff.
You have served in public office, and at the county level, people approach things a little bit differently. At the state level, the divisions of partisanship are pretty apparent. And I should point out, and I always try to do this for the people I cover in the legislature, many, many things happen on a bipartisan basis in Lansing. But the things that tend to rise to the top very often are those things where there are sharp divisions, such as we saw in this past year with the pandemic, the legislature and the governor having big differences about how to handle that. Not weighing in on that, because hopefully if you're elected, you'll never have to deal with a pandemic.
Right.
That would be everybody's hope, right? But what do you think, when you think of Lansing, when you think about those divisions, when you think about the partisanship, the divide, not just in Lansing, but in this country, where people seem to be deeply divided, what can be done, what should be done to try to get people to listen to each other again?
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, it's probably as bad or as worse as I've ever seen it, and a lot of it I feel is just common sense and stuff, and but as far as you just have to have the right people in there, and you have to, cooperate on stuff. I mean, give and take. It's always a compromise.
If you're successful in the primary and successful in the general, it will be an interesting circumstance for whomever wins this race, because you'll have a year and a few months, and with the new districts coming out, it's possible if you win, you might not end up living in this district. If that happens, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Well, then I'll decide how I can help the people in the area the most, in either the new Senate seat or maybe the rep seat. But I will definitely try to help out the people. I'm always looking out for the people. That's my biggest concern.
When we come back, the other Democrat looking to become senator from the 28th district, To the Point. Welcome back to the Point. The August primary for the 28th district Senate seat in Kent County will feature two Democrats, one of whom is Gidget Grondike. So you're one of two Democrats in this race. Tell us some of your background and a little bit about your professional history, and then we'll get on to the reasons that you're running for office.
Sure, that's fair to say. So my professional background actually started with my grandfather. I worked as in the grocery store business, and I went through college, and later on I was recruited for Sherwin-Williams as a territorial district manager, and my territory covered everything from I-75 west from the Indiana state border all the way up to Marquette. And my job was to go out and deal with customer complaints and find resolutions. I did that for a while, and then I was offered a position over to Kent Career Tech Center as an educator. And whereabouts many of the people are going to be voting this election, I went out and taught them a technical a trade in the K-11, K-12 series at Kent Career Tech Center in the collision industry. And it was really kind of strange is a lot of the people who are coming out of these high schools in Kent County, they had a hard time reading. And it just seemed like they weren't really prepared what lied ahead. And the other thing that was strange, most of them had no desire for college. And if we were lucky, out of 100 people, maybe 8 of them actually went on with their career and made a decent living. After I left Kent Career Center, my entrepreneurship kind of got the best of me, and I went out and opened up a salon in Sparta, Michigan, and I hired 7 of the the best stylists in the area, and it was a real big hit. The place was open from 7 in the morning to about 1 a.m. in the morning. It was going all the time. And within 3 months, we grew large enough. We bought out the local competition and became very profitable. In 2011, they diagnosed me with stage 2 colon cancer, and they gave me 90 days to live. So it was a pretty big hit on me. And that was also the year that I was told to go see a therapist, and they said I was transgender, and that kind of leaked around the small little area of Sparta, and it kind of decimated my whole business. Our family has always been in the area in Kent County, for 4 generations. My grandfather was a World War I vet. My grandfather, Larry Grondike, He was also was in the military and in Normandy, and he also had had a big dream, a larger dream for his family, American dream, and that was to provide more than just a simple paycheck, but to provide for his family and the future generations. So he opened up a store in Sparta, Michigan, a grocery store, and with that grocery store, it became a very big hit. But he always remembered his community that was around him. He always, at Christmas time, he always made sure that people always had Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving turkeys. He always gave to all the local churches. Then when he passed away, my grandfather was a very large property owner. He went out and gave the opportunity for the Christian Reformed Church to obtain the property inspired to have their own church. So,
When you list all of the things that you've done, you talked about your family's heritage. I couldn't help but think when you were talking about Sherman Williams being a rep, it's pretty much like constituent service. It almost sounds like what politicians do when they go out and talk to their...
well, it's the same thing. I mean, it was really large. My customer was Gentleman Parts Company. It was the private label of Martin Senior Automotive Paints. And basically, my office was in Cleveland, Ohio, and my territory was, of course, here. And my only customer was only one customer, and that was the Napa DC in Grand Rapids. And we had to go out and present, look at numbers that we had to go out and stay within a budget. And we also had to go out and see what stores were struggling, how we could improve it, and make them profitable, and make the business run. Because if they're doing better, we're doing better.
Let's talk about why you decided to get in this race, because obviously it's an open seat, so that's an opportunity, but that's not the reason you're running. You have some very definite reasons to run.
Well, yeah, I started running in 2016, and when I first started running, it was because I looked at an area that was not covered and for protection. That was the LGBT community. And what was happening was LGBT community, they had no protection. So let's say if you had a house in an area, they could tell you that you couldn't live there. If you had a job, they could fire you. If you had a medical condition, the doctor did not have to wait on you. So it was a very, very different time. And I felt the need to go out and do something about this. And since then, I really got involved, locally, local races, and in the last Senate race, to go out and serve my community. It's never been about me. It's always been about the community and try to help the community. And as we seen last year, in the midst of this pandemic that we had, it was like no other. I mean, we had the stock market crash, unlike anything like 1929. Schools, churches, small businesses, large businesses, and government agencies were just shut right down. And we were told to stay home. And if we needed to go out to get something, we were told to wear a mask. And this right here just totally annihilated our system as we know it. And later, during the year, we've seen some more uprising, especially in Minnesota, as we've seen. We've seen the injustice that happened there that carried on over to Michigan, and people are tired of of what's going on. People want to see others get treated fairly, and last but not, and then later on in the year, our sacred but most sacred elections were compromised. They said that the elections were rigged. Now I have Republican friends as well as I have Democrat friends, and what I'm seeing right now is the whole state is divided, and it's so divided that some people went over to the Capitol and they raided it, and And it's just not, it's not right. That's not who we are as Americans. And so I do a lot of cold calling. I knock on doors. I see what people want. And the first thing is, if I'm finding out, is they don't trust politicians. They really don't. And they don't. They always they don't want a politician that's been in office, that's made countless promises, that hasn't delivered. They want somebody that's new, that's going to go out, that's trustworthy, that's going to go out and do the right thing, and it's going to go out and bring trust back within our government, not only on the left side, but the right side and the independents.
Are there any particular things that you have in your mind that you would like to do if you're elected, like something specific to try to make progress in some of the areas that you talked about?
Well, going forwards, 2020 is, 2021 is going to be very, very hard for whoever wins this race, because not only do they have to go out and bring both sides together, they also got to go out and figure what are we going to do with the small businesses? How are we going to reopen Michigan? They also have to go out and figure out the budget. And I learned a lot about just by, like talking with the budget and everything. I always keep on hearing, stop wasteful spending at the government level. When I was over to running over in Plainfield, the budget spent. I mean, it's spent from the police department, the fire department, and the payroll. There's nothing left. So what happens? They borrow money from the state, and they get charged a big interest rate. Whereabouts it's almost cheaper for them to borrow it from a bank, and that's one thing that has to be changed. The other thing is our infrastructure system. You take a look at our infrastructure system. Not only do we have to look at what's above the road, we got to start looking at what's below the road, as we see what happened over in Flint. People deserve the right for clean water, and of course of our health care. I'm very passionate about our military, and I'm also passionate about our seniors. And right now, people need to go out and be able to decide on what doctor they want to go see and eliminate pre-existing conditions. And they need to go out and have the insurance company not tell them what's covered, but the doctor and the patient themselves. And the other thing is, with the military, when I worked over to Pine Rest, I found out so many things that need to be done, especially with the VA. A lot of the people that worked over, they worked over to the VA hospital, and they quit over there because it's just absolutely a mess. Our veterans are not getting the services that they deserved. Now, my father passed away about a year and a half ago, and he never even got a military funeral. So these things that are promised are getting stepped on, and they're getting overworked.
Back with final thought next, To the Point. The open seat in the 28th Senate District is the only state race that will be on the ballot in this off year. It was created when Peter McGregor left his final 2 years in the Senate to become Kent County Treasurer. The eventual winner will serve until the end of next year, and with new districts drawn, it will remain to be seen if they even still live in the district they will currently represent. We'll find out about that hopefully later this year when those new lines are revealed. Finally, a program note: due to special programming, including the Olympics, we will be on sporadically for the next few weeks, sometimes airing only Saturday at 7:30. For 3 weeks in late July and early August, we'll not have shows due to the Olympics coverage, but we'll be back in full force in the fall. Till then, we'll see you next week. To the Point.